On the 25th of December 1989, the Romanian dictator and his wife were dragged out to their executions and were stood against the wall of a military building. The Ceausescus had been condemned a short time before, and an execution squad made up of 8 paratroop soldiers were there to complete the job. Elena Ceausescu screamed at the soldiers, and her husband Nicolae began to sing as the soldiers opened up their weapons and shot into the pair. The executions were so swift that the cameras struggled to capture the brutal final moments. But the Ceausescus had argued that the court that condemned them was not legally standing, and because of this they complained about their impending execution. It was carried out very quickly, but specifically, what had the Ceausescus been sentenced to death for, and what were their crimes? Welcome to The Untold Past. To support our channel, please make sure to subscribe. Nicolae Ceausescu rose throughout different governmental positions until he became, in 1974, the president of Romania. He became the dictator, and then his wife rose to powerful positions too, and she was seen as the mother of the nation, and the pair were said to have been very power-hungry, Elena more so than her husband. But she then became the first deputy prime minister. Tensions would later arise inside of Romania towards the end of the 1980s. A group of Hungarians inside the town of Timisoara protested about the eviction of a Hungarian pastor, and the crowd grew and became an angry, anti-governmental mob. It wasn't long before a revolution broke out in different cities inside of Romania, and the police also used tear gas and water cannons against their own people. The army were not able to control what was going on, and they were then ordered, probably by the Ceausescus, to use whatever force was required to put down the revolt. Inside of Liberty Square, a lot of shooting took place, and helicopters circled, and it was like a war zone. Some people were shot at, and they did die in the revolution. One of the most iconic moments of the fall of the Ceausescus occurred on the 21st of December 1989. Nicolae Ceausescu made a speech to 100,000 people to try and end the uprising, but this went very wrong, as he was heckled, and further gunshots were heard, and the crowd dispersed, as security services also fired upon the crowd. However, further horror took place, as anti-terrorism squads were sent in to deal with the protesters, and the crowd were then shot at again, and some were even run over by military vehicles. And the police also shot at anyone who they deemed was a protester. The demise of the Ceausescus was coming, and they tried to flee in the morning of the 22nd of December. But they delayed this, and they managed to somehow escape by helicopter as protesters clambered onto the roof of the building they were hiding in. The pilot of the helicopter, when he saw the pair on the roof of the building they were sheltering at, said, "Then Stelica, the co-pilot, came to me and said that there were demonstrators coming to the terrace." Then the Ceausescus came out, both practically carried by their bodyguards. They looked as if they were fainting. They were white with terror. Manea Manescu, one of the vice presidents, and Emil Bobu were running behind them. Manescu, Bobu, another man, and another security officer scrambled to the 4 seats in the back. As I pulled Ceausescu in, I saw the demonstrators running across the terrace. There wasn't enough space. Elena and I were squeezed in between the chairs and the door. We were only supposed to carry 4 passengers, and we had 6. The helicopter went a short distance, no further than Snagover, and the Ceausescus then went on the run, but they were soon arrested by local police. But they were then sent to the Targa Vist garrison military compound. They would be placed on trial there. They were defended by lawyer Nicolae Teodorescu, and he had actually been enjoying his Christmas Day breakfast when he was then summoned to go and act as a Ceausescu's defence counsel. He met with Nicolae and Elena in the courtroom and was given just 10 minutes to speak with them, and he could not have a proper defence prepared for them, and he tried to make sure that they realised that the best way of deferring a death sentence or escaping one was to state that they were insane. But the Ceausescus did not want people to think they were insane. They thought it was a trap. They did not go for the insanity defence. However, the trial occurred inside the garrison command office, and the pair had a medical examination briefly. The trial of the Ceausescus was very short, and it lasted for just an hour. Nicolae tried to state that the tribunal was false and was against the Romanian constitution, and he claimed that the only people who could depose him from power was the Great National Assembly. He claimed that it was a coup organised by other forces and nations, such as the Soviets. Specifically, there were a huge amount of charges levelled against the pair. This included genocide, and it was claimed by the courtroom that the Ceausescus had around 60,000 victims, that their actions had caused widespread killing across Romania, and that imposing their will and rule was done with devastating effect. They were also accused of subverting the state power by organising armed actions against the people and the state. They were accused of having ordered the army and special forces, including the police, to fire upon civilians and bring the revolution to an end, but this resulted in the deaths of up to 1,290 people and injuries to around 3,000 people. Also, they found themselves accused of destruction of public property by destroying and damaging buildings and in carrying out explosions in cities and towns. This was linked to the revolution, but also in enforcing their power. One of the most serious charges that they were accused of was a depletion and undermining of the national economy, and this was linked to Ceausescu's devastating decision to mess with agriculture, and this even led to rationing being introduced as the food output dropped sharply during the 1980s. The pair were then also finally charged with trying to flee the nation and using over $1 billion in foreign banks to then escape and begin a new life with money that belonged to Romanian civilians. The pair were convicted of all charges, and they were then sentenced to death in a show trial, and there had been little time to gather evidence. However, the decision to execute the Ceausescus had been made in the hours before they even entered the courtroom. The leaders of the coup stated that the execution of them was necessary to stop the new political order being attacked by other radicals and terrorists, and many of the charges they were accused of were never proven. For example, a bank account holding a huge amount of dollars was never located. But one thing that the pair could not deny was the complicity in the genocide and the huge food shortages that led to thousands of deaths, and that they'd clearly ordered the army to fire on the civilians. It was 2:50 p.m. on the 25th of December 1989 that the Ceausescus were executed, and the pair went to their deaths believing they should not have been executed by the unjust court that they believed had no legal standing. They thought they were being murdered, but for the revolutionaries their deaths marked a new chapter in Romania's history. The firing squad were made up of 8 paratroop soldiers, and there had been many more who had volunteered to do the job. The Ceausescus had their hands tied by 4 soldiers, and quickly the pair were then shot against a wall. The shooting was so quick that the television crews only managed to capture the final shots, and some of the soldiers fired their rifles in fully automatic mode. It's claimed that 120 bullets were found in the bodies of the dictator and his wife. The Ceausescus were then buried inside a cemetery in Bucharest, and their remains were identified and exhumed in 2010. The main charge that the Ceausescus were accused of was a responsibility for 60,000 people's deaths, and following their capture, they were rapidly sentenced to death. The pair went to their executions, not acknowledging the tribunal and the trial's legitimacy, but the crimes they were accused of were wide-ranging and dealt with the immediacy of the revolution, but also some of the policies of the dictator. Nicolae Ceausescu and Elena had caused the deaths of thousands due to their poor management of the nation, and many people even starved to death in Romania. Thanks for watching. To support our channel, please make sure to subscribe, and once again, thank you so much for watching.